everybody to go home with something they can use. This is the idea of a Sunday feast talk. That a Sunday feast talk is a talk about bhakti yoga, about devotional service, about the scriptures, done in such a way that those who come, when they leave, they can have something they can take with them, something they can use in their daily life to help them in their life. So I was thinking about thoughts. Our thoughts, they determine the quality of our life. If we have good thoughts, then we generally have a good life. Positive thoughts generally increase our life quality, and negative thoughts lead us into depression, anxiety, and suffering in so many ways. So these are problems that many people in the world face every day. They face challenges with their mind. It's described that there are 3 types of miseries. One of them is adhyatmika klesh, that's miseries from the self, from the body and mind. So we're all facing miseries from the body and mind. Adhibodhika klesh, those are miseries coming from other living entities. And adhidaivika klesh, miseries coming from the weather, the earthquakes, natural disasters, these types of things. So out of all 3 of those, most people agree that the adhyatmika klesh is the most severe. It's what affects us the most, is we struggle with our own mind and senses. So our thoughts, our conceptions of who we are, they really determine the quality of our life. So there are empowering conceptions of the self, and there are disempowering conceptions of the self. And the majority of people in the world are in a very disempowered state. This is the vast majority of people. They're situated in a very disempowered state, a low vibrational, you could say, because they don't know who they are. They are forced by this reality we live in, the matrix we live in, to consider themselves limited in so many ways. They limit themselves. They put on limiting factors, or false ego. This is called upadhis. They have so many upadhis. I'm this, I'm that. And because I'm this, I have this much power, and therefore I'm subjected to so many miseries that I can't solve. And I was just thinking, since it's election season, it's always a good example to use that, growing up, especially in America, you hear all about, you have power, vote. And I'm thinking, talk about disempowerment. The power I have is based on a choice between evil and more evil. This is the empowerment that I have. This is how you're telling me I'm going to change the world. This is not a very empowering conception. So we all have different self-conceptions. And even amongst religions, amongst spiritual practices, there's so many different conceptions of the self. But the most basic and fundamental conception of the self is aham brahmasmi, I am spirit. I am not this body. I am the spirit soul within the body. And amongst spiritual circles and spiritualists, it is in realizing this fact that one exits the state of suffering, realizing I'm spirit, coming to the platform of spiritual realization. So in the Bhagavad Gita, you hear this word gyan. It's a common word, gyan, which means knowledge, but we're not talking about knowledge of physics and chemistry and mathematics. When Krishna refers to jnana, he means understanding clearly, having a full realization of the fact that we are the soul within the body. This is called jnana, or actual knowledge. And our founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada, many times emphatically says in his lectures that real knowledge means understanding the difference between matter and spirit. What is matter and what is spirit? And if you can actually understand this, get your mind around this, life becomes much easier. So in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled Transcendental Knowledge, Krishna explains this fact, this process by which one gains transcendental knowledge, by which one gains the understanding that I'm not this body, I'm the soul within the body. And Krishna explains that this is not a sentimental thing. This is not something that is speculated by people in their armchairs. This is something that has come down from him, from God himself. Evam parampara prapta imam rajasahovaru sakaleneha mahata yogo nasta parantapaha. That this transcendental knowledge was received in the chain of disciplic successions by the great kings, the great saintly kings received it. But in course of time, that knowledge is broken. So Krishna comes again to re-speak the Bhagavad Gita and to re-enthuse us with this knowledge, with these processes by which we can understand clearly that I'm not this body. It's one thing to understand intellectually. It's another thing to understand in the heart. I'm not the body. I'm the soul within the body. So we need transcendental knowledge. So the Bhagavatam defines, truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the benefit of all. Reality distinguished from illusion for the benefit of all. This is the second verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is a very beautiful point. What is reality and what is illusion? And it is in distinguishing those two that one gains the ability to benefit, to help people. We hear a lot about compassion in the world. We got to be compassionate. But there is a difference between compassion and empathy. Someone who has empathy means I feel for you, man. I see that you're suffering, and I feel for you. I'm sorry to hear that. I can't really do anything, though. I don't have the ability to solve your problem. But compassion is something that can be developed because someone who's compassionate not only has empathy for that person who's suffering, but also has the facility to help them. And so to the degree we have facility to relieve the suffering of others, we can increase our level of compassion. So nothing is more suitable to facilitating our ability to be compassionate than developing transcendental knowledge, because by this transcendental knowledge, all sufferings are destroyed. All miseries are destroyed in the fire of transcendental knowledge. When reality is distinguished from illusion for the benefit of all. So if our conception is that I'm an American and that my freedom, my choice, and my power is based on choosing between Donald Trump and whoever now is going to be running, if this is your power, then I feel very sorry for you, because this is not a very powerful position. We have much more power than that in our actual position. Krishna explains, he says, Mamai vamsho jivaloke jiva bhuta sanatana manastastash endriyani prakriti stani karshati. He explains that the living entities in this material world are my fragmental parts and parcels. So try to understand that. Try to understand this point very clearly. That the living entities in this world, that includes you and me, that includes the trees, that includes the birds, that includes the beasts, that includes the fish, the germs, the insects, the grass. The living entities in this material world are my fragmental parts and parcels. So we're parts of God, eternally fragmented parts of God. We're not God. We'll never be God. We'll never be as powerful as God. But we are of the same quality. So the living entities in this material world are my eternal fragmental parts. But due to the six senses, which include the mind. So we all know about the five senses, the ears, the eyes, the nose, the tongue, and the sixth sense, which includes the mind. Due to these six senses, we are struggling very hard in this material world. So everybody's struggling with their mind and senses, right? The mind is agitated, it agitates the senses, and we go through so many, mini nightmares throughout our life. Oh, I'm bothered by this, I'm bothered by that, and therefore we struggle very hard. But actually, you're part and parcel of Krishna. You're part of God. So that means you have great power, great potential, almost unlimited potential within inside you to be positive, to have a very beautiful outlook on life. And for one who realizes this, it said in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta, Prasanatma, Nasochati, Nakangshati. Such a person situated on that transcendental platform, understanding this knowledge clearly, they don't lament. So we're all lamenting things be lost. This is the position of a materially conditioned soul. I lament this, I lament that. And they don't hanker. They're satisfied in boundless transcendental happiness. This is what Krishna says. Boundless transcendental happiness. So if we want boundless transcendental happiness, we have to come to this platform. Such a person sees that everybody is equal. They see that there's a spirit spark in every single person, every single bird, every single animal, and they don't judge. They discern, but they don't judge. They love everyone. And in that state, one obtains pure love for God, which is the highest and most cherishable goal. Pure love for God. One has a complete understanding of their relationship with God, and they become fully happy. So amongst the world today of spirituality, we hear a lot about positive thinking, and Hare Krishnas sometimes get grouped into the negativity crowd because we're talking about birth, death, old age, disease. The world's temporary and full of misery. It's a struggle for existence. If you've come here enough, you've heard about that. But in essence, the body's full of misery and we can't avoid it. The body's full of suffering. And so we have to transcend the conception of the body. And by situating ourselves via the practice of Krishna consciousness or the practice of bhakti yoga, which we teach here, if you do that seriously, you'll come to the plane of transcendental knowledge and you'll be able to see the bright side. And there's a bright side to existence. It's very, very hard. This is a very depressing place we live in. Now you could say, oh, it's very negative for you to see that the world is depressing, but actually we don't understand what negative is. Negativity doesn't mean that if I don't like it, it's negative. If something feels good, that doesn't make it positive. Hard drugs feel good. Why do people use them? They feel good, but does that mean they're positive? Is heroin positive? Is methamphetamine positive? They're not positive. They're extraordinarily negative. So if our conception of positive and negative is based on what feels good, we're deeply immersed in illusion. So we have to judge what is positive and negative based on knowledge, based on real knowledge. So one thing I can tell you is positive is understanding the truth. Truth is always positive. Living in the truth, being in the truth, experiencing the truth, this is true positivity. So the truth of this world is that it is temporary, that you are going to die, that there is going to be birth, that there is going to be death, that there is going to be old age and disease. This is the truth of this material world. There are serious challenges in life. All the pleasure we gain is temporal. And most of it is simply a cessation of the misery. That's not negative, that's very positive because that's the truth. So now that we understand that in clearness, we can actually do something to change it. So there is a bright side. And a devotee is always positive, he's always happy because he lives in the bright side. He sees the wonderful side of things. First thing is, you're eternal. That's a relief. You'll never die. Krishna says, Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam nimi janadipaha nachaiva nabhavishama sarve vyamatapharam. Never was there a time when you did not exist, nor any of us, nor anybody. We're all eternal living beings. So if you can actually realize this, that you're eternal, you're never going to die. You've always existed and you always will exist because you're part and parcel of Krishna. This is the platform by which we can begin to kind of have a very positive conception of life. And material endeavors. We're all doing things in this world. Everybody's trying very hard to accomplish something. They want to accomplish high education, making money, nice relationships, nice families, all these different things everybody's trying to accomplish. But if it's based in the material energy, it is guaranteed to fail, always. Once again, not negative, but just truthful. Because even if you have the perfect life, at the time of death, you, the eternal soul, have to leave, which is very painful for both those around you and for the one leaving. So there's this temporal nature of things. And we can't take it with us. We can't take our college degree with us. We can't take our family members with us. We can't take any of the things that most materialistic people hold so dear with us. You can't take your money with you. When you die, your money becomes someone else's money. Of course, it's not their money either. It's the energy of the material world. It belongs in this world. You don't. It stays here, whereas you go somewhere else, to another body, to another dimension, or to this dimension, or to a lower dimension, or to a lower animal species. You go somewhere based on your karma. So all of the things in this world, we can work so hard, and there's never a guarantee that we'll be successful. There's never a guarantee we'll be successful. Anything could happen to end our success in the material world. But for the spiritual path, there's no possibility of fail. If you just accept the spiritual conception of life as taught by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, if you can just accept that, there's no possibility of fail. You'll always be successful if you're trying to please Krishna. Why? Because Krishna doesn't care about the result. You can't give Krishna something big enough to care about. You can give him $1 trillion, quadrillion dollars, octillion dollars. You can give Krishna unlimited money and he still has more money than that. Infinitely more money, because Krishna is Bhagavan. He has all opulences, including wealth. He's the owner of everything. There's nothing you can do on the material level that's enough for Krishna, but Krishna cares about our love. So just the endeavor, if done with bhakti, if done with devotion, the endeavor we make to please Krishna properly, it's already a success. Just by doing something in Krishna's service is a success. If you can chant Hare Krishna with love, you're successful. And you'll feel that spiritual success. That spiritual success, it makes you happy within. You don't need anything external. You don't need any justification. You don't need anybody to tell you that you're good enough. You feel good enough because you're being approved by Krishna, and you can feel that. Just like when you're eating, you feel full. One who's pleasing Krishna can understand I'm pleasing Krishna, and therefore I feel blissful. Positive thought. Krishna is with me. God is on my side. When one becomes a devotee of the Lord, or in other words, when one accepts themselves as spirit, not as matter, not as American, not as Hindu or Jewish or Indian or Christian or man or woman, when one accepts, I am the eternal servant of God. I have always been the eternal servant of God. When one can accept this conception of life, then God is always with them. Krishna is always on my side. Krishna is always protecting me. This is the state of being of a surrendered soul. So such a person feels very jubilant. Also, many people are afraid of death. Everybody's afraid of death in the material world. They think, oh, death is coming. Take away my money. Take away my family. Take away my enjoyment. And where am I going after death? Maybe I have some idea. Some people think I'm going to be reincarnated. And maybe I'll go to heaven. Maybe I'll go to hell. Still, Krishna says that from the highest planet down to the lowest planet, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. So even if you go to heaven, you die again. So you have to find where I go, where I'm eternal. So where are we going? So for someone who accepts this Krishna consciousness, someone who accepts the path of bhakti, they have no reason to ever be negative, because they know at the end of this, I'm going home. I'm going to the spiritual world. I'm going to be with Krishna. That's not just a sentimental belief. A devotee actually experiences that. Example commonly given is that at night we see the sun's about to rise. We don't see the sun, but we see all the symptoms that the sun is rising. So similarly, such a person who's practicing Krishna consciousness, who's chanting Hare Krishna, taking prasadam, organizing their life and regulating their life in such a way that's pleasing to God, such a person can understand that the sun is rising, Krishna is coming. One of our devotees was very good friends with George Harrison. And he preached to George Harrison so much about Krishna. And George Harrison, he became a devotee. He chanted Hare Krishna, even chanted it in his songs. And George Harrison was close with Srila Prabhupada. And once before the album Abbey Road came out, George Harrison called one of our devotees, Shambhasundar Das, and he said, I wrote this song about Krishna. And he said, here comes the sun, da, 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 da. Here comes the sun, I say, it's all right. So, yes, when one accepts the path of bhakti, they know Krishna is coming. I am going to Krishna because I have the mercy of Krishna. I have the mercy of all the devotees. I have nothing to worry about. What can possibly in this world defeat me enough? Because I know that after this is over, I'm going to be with Krishna. I can see the sun. I see it coming. So also, all these material endeavors, they all have their, their faults. They all have their, their allotted time. They're not eternal. But someone who's Krishna conscious, even though this world is so crazy, even though there's so many wars and so many struggles and so many taxes to pay and so many things going on, a Krishna conscious person has peace of mind. Very, very hard to find in this world, someone who's peaceful. What to speak of happiness? Just give me some peace. Then I can work on happiness. Krishna conscious person is always peaceful. He understands. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam. That whatever you're doing, whatever austerities or struggles you may be going through, Krishna is the receiver. We should struggle for Krishna. Why should we struggle for Maya? Why should we struggle for things that are temporal? Why should we struggle for something that we don't even know we will achieve? But if you struggle for Krishna, if you do austerities for Krishna, then you'll always be peaceful, Krishna says. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is the Lord of all planets and all demigods. So whatever it is that is happening, God is in control. And if I'm a devotee of God, and I understand God doesn't make mistakes, and because I've done so much bhakti yoga, I've chanted Hare Krishna, I've heard these knowledge, I have such a profound experience of God. Because of that, I know God. I'm not just hearing some guy on the cushion speak about it and walking out. I actually know God because I have a relationship. And I know that Krishna doesn't make mistakes. Everything is happening for my benefit. He's in control and everything's happening for my benefit. So as bad as it may seem, it's actually for my benefit. Because Krishna is Suridam Sarvabhutanam. Krishna is our dearest friend. God is your dearest friend. No one loves you like Krishna. For so many lifetimes, you've ignored Krishna. So many lifetimes, we've all ignored Krishna. But Krishna, he's in our heart. Sarvashya chaham hridishani vishto. He's situated in our heart. And even though we're ignoring him, he continues to come with us. And he arranges so many ways in all forms of life for us to somehow look at him, somehow come back to him. And for a devotee who does that, Krishna, he realizes, you're my dearest friend, Krishna. You're the greatest friend, the greatest well-wisher. God is the greatest friend of all of us. And so someone who has this knowledge, they're always peaceful because everything they're doing for God. They understand whatever happens, God's in control. I'm just exercising my ability to love him. And he's my friend, so he doesn't make mistakes. Everything's going to be okay in the end for a devotee. John Lennon once said, everything's going to be all right in the end, and if it's not the end. So same for a devotee. Everything's always okay in the end because Krishna's in control. He can do that because he's God. So this transcendental knowledge culminates when we chant Hare Krishna. If you chant this mantra here, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By chanting this Hare Krishna mantra, this is one of the sacrifices or the sanctifying processes that Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, of sacrifices or of things that make things sacred, that's what sacrifice means, to sanctify. Of sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names, japa. So the chanting of the holy names is a sacrifice. In the process of sacrifice or the process of sanctifying our existence, brings all good things to us. And if you practice this devotional service, this bhakti yoga, then in time, you realize without a doubt, I'm not this body. I'm the soul within the body. And you come to a platform of true happiness. Otherwise, you can't be happy. If you do something else, you'll never be happy because you're eternal. You can't find happiness in those things that are temporary. So happiness has to come from God. One has to seek their happiness in God because you're not this body, you're the soul within the body. So how could you expect to find happiness via this body? The body is full of a little happiness. Little happiness is there, but there's so much pain available for the body. And the example given is you take your hand. How many ways can your hand enjoy? You can pet a cat. You can do something. You can touch something nice. You can put on some lotion. I don't know. Krishna says, in this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service, which is what we're doing here, folks, enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course of time. So in other words, there's nothing so pure and joyful and relishable and sublime is this chanting, is this process we're doing here. And if you engage in it, it's the mature fruit of all mysticism. So all the yoga, all the meditation, all the prayer, all the things you're seeing in all of the practices culminate in this transcendental knowledge, which is accomplished very easily via the process of bhakti yoga. So are there any questions or comments? Indupati Prabhu. Thank you.
I am curious, how could God be a person? God is everything. How could God be a person? And why did he come to earth?
Well, you said it yourself. If God is everything, how could God not be a person? If God is everything, that means he has to be a person. God is both personal and impersonal. Krishna says, Sutta Goswami explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedanti tat vavidas tatvam yajnanam abram tatvad yajnanam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shadyate. God is realized in three ways. He's realized as Brahman, he's realized as Paramatma, and he's realized as Bhagavan. So God is everything. That's one conception of God. And God is in the heart of all living entities. That's another conception of God. And God is a transcendental personality beyond time and space. That's another conception of God. Having realized that Bhagavan, one realizes all others. And why does he come to earth? Because he loves us. If you were God, you wouldn't do anything but love. God has no reason to experience pain. God has no reason to experience anger and these types of things that we're experiencing in this material world. Hankering, lamentation. God's business is enjoyment. And to increase his enjoyment, the jivas exist to have a relationship. But we have that choice to turn away. And so to enhance our rasa, to enhance our loving relationship with him, he comes back to entice us with his love to return home to him. He comes to this material world. Thank you. Any other questions? Chandrika? Sarvakanti?
A lot of people, some people think that, to have positive thinking, that there's a lot of forces and different things, positive thinking. And so they think, I don't need God, I'm just a positive person, I think positive. They actually look at God as negative. You have to think God is.
Yeah. But then when things go bad, they're never positive. That's my experience, I don't need God, and therefore I'm positive. But then when mom dies or when I get cancer, it's very hard for me to be positive. So what is there to take shelter of? Nothing, because all my positive thinking is just because I want a new car, I want a new mate. I want lots of money. This is their conception of positivity. They can't understand that real positivity is God, is Krishna. He's the most positive object, most positive personality. And they think that because this is the biggest, on that matter, specifically to those people, this is, I quote this verse. Krishna says that the living entities in this material world think themselves the doer of activities that are in actuality performed by the modes of material nature because of false ego. So they're in this false conception of life. They think I'm this body, and they think I'm thinking so many positive thoughts, and the universe is sending me so many positive things. But actually, that's just their karma. You think that the guy on the street out there is not thinking about making millions of dollars? He's thinking about making millions of dollars. He's thinking about finding a nice girl. He's thinking about having a big house and enjoying, but he doesn't have the karma for it. Whereas this fool who thinks, yes, I'm thinking positively and all these things are coming to me. But that's just their karma. And when that karma runs out, he'll be on the street also. So that verse kind of shoots a hole through that conception. So we have karma. That's something that's misunderstood. Anyhow, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming.